Welcome to the Belly Dance Stories podcast, a multimedia production directed by Alexandra Molina and Valerick Molinari.
You will hear inspiring conversations and learn about the ways belly dance has become a powerful channel of transformation in people's lives. Welcome to the Belly Dance Stories podcast. My name is Alexandra.
And I am Valerick.
And we have a very special international artist today on our podcast. We can't wait to talk to her about some exciting information that she has in a very unique project that she has going as well. Lenka, also known as Badriyah, is a professional Raqs Sharqi dancer and instructor based in Belgium. She is also the director and creator of the online Raqs Sharqi Museum, where she aims to hold space for the voices of the past to be heard, promoting cultural awareness and preservation. Lenka travels, she teaches, she performs internationally, and is currently focusing her work on the rich styles and historical treasures of the 19th and 20th century world of belly dance. And fun fact, she is, and it's also very important that we will talk more about later, Lenka is also a space weather physicist, focusing on work in the sciences, influences the way that she studies and creates the cultural arts. So that's going to be a really fascinating aspect of our conversation today that we can't wait to have. Lenka, welcome. We're so happy to have you here.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a true honor for me. Thank you.
Likewise. Lenka, you are on an anthropological journey right now, and that is a very ambitious project and work that you're doing. It requires a lot of dedication. It requires a lot of work. It requires collaboration from your peers and with your peers as well. When did your fascination for the Arab culture begin? And in other words, what is your belly dance origin story?
Thank you for this question. I would love to say that I went to Egypt and fell in love with the culture. But unfortunately, the beginnings of my journey were more Orientalist, I have to admit, because I started 20 years ago and I was only 18 years old back then, and everybody in the high school was laughing at me that I'm more as a boy than a girl.
Oh.
Because I loved jazz, I liked rock music, I liked physics, right? And everybody was saying you're more boy than a girl. So I went on the street somewhere to play, actually to the school where I played flute, and I saw a flyer, belly dance courses. And I said, okay, I'm going to show you everyone that I'm a girl. Because, you know, when you're a teenager, you take it very seriously that somebody calls you
A tomboy. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's how I started. I went to the belly dance class back then in Ostrava in Czech Republic. And I remember when I opened the door and I heard the music and I heard the coins ringing, you know, back then the coin bells were very fashionable. I immediately had a thought, this will be my journey. I had no idea to which culture the dance is connected, unfortunately, because there were no information. And yeah, that's how I fell in love first with the movement, I have to be honest. But then when I started to go deeper, when I started to travel to Egypt to take private classes, I realized how rich this is, that it's not just movement, that it's representing culture, a lot of way people in Egypt think and live. And this is not just about me shaking, let's say, because that's what they used to say in Czech Republic, you're just shaking yourself, that it's way richer. And there's kind of responsibility to learn more. So that's how my journey started. I have to admit, it was very Orientalist way. Yeah.
I think many of us start that way in the West. We are not aware of the culture, and it's not until we get, you know, we step through that little window of music and we hear the music, or we see the dancer and she's just, you know, free and flowing. We fall in love with that aesthetic, and then some of us do a deeper research, right? And then we're like, yeah, let's learn more about this, right?
Yes, even the same term doesn't have like a geographical reference. So we're like, okay, this is about shake it and shimmy and yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when we go deep, then we realize that it's connected to a culture. That it's actually a cultural dance.
Yeah.
And that's
And
one of the greatest things also about it.
And it's so sad that, for example, in Europe, when we say flamenco, everybody knows it's connected to Spain, right? But when we say Raqs Sharqi or belly dance, or in Europe they say oriental dance, people don't know.
No a specific reference, yeah.
It's just something exotic and to seduce someone. That's how people perceive it still. I thought it's different, but it's still like that. So yeah, it's time to educate ourselves and people around. So there's this interesting, I don't know if it's stigma, but interesting thing that I observed, that many dancers feel ashamed to say that they're belly dancers in Europe, in their own job, full-time job, that they're hiding that past or the part of their life. But I think I would recommend not to hide it, to be open about it. We can hear comments like, oh, so you're shaking your butt and this and that. What I do usually, I said, well, it's way more rich. What we do, we are studying Egyptian culture and Lebanese culture and so on. And I try to educate even people in my personal life. And I think it's good to do it in general. Yeah, to find the connection with the culture in between. Normal conversation.
That's interesting that you said that about the European dancers, because I do think that also applies here.
Yeah.
There's been a sexualization of the art form
Oh, yeah.
by also Western media, that dancers know that once they say that, people are just like, oh, you belly dance. That means that you do exactly what?
Yeah.
Like there's this idea that we're like some type of, I feel like Arab strippers or like
Yeah.
And the big question is, how can we make it better? What would be the better or the more impactful and powerful way that we can change this conversation, right? I think that, and through your research that you're going to share with us later, I feel that dancers of the Arabic world, they've always had this struggle to share their culture and their folklore and their love and their passion. And how can we, passionate people and enthusiasts and lovers and people who are outside of that culture help to spread, this information and the art form. What have been your challenges and successes in doing that work along the way?
I think what we can do, for example, here in US or in Europe, is to destroy the myth of Oriental exotic dancer. I think that's the first thing what to do, to talk to people that it is connected to a specific culture, and especially to give voices of people of the culture. So we are not just in our own, lake or pot doing our own job, but really bring in musicians, dancers to our own events to give the voices and connect that event we organize with also the local people of the culture. So if I can speak a little bit more concretely, there is a lot of dance festivals across the world, right? And if I'll be very honest, if you look into these festivals, who is there? There are people, of course, usually of that country, learning the dance. Many times we don't see any dancers of the culture teaching or giving lectures. Sometimes we do, but also in the audience, in the workshops area, there are also not the local people coming from Egypt, right? So that's a very challenging thing to do. Bring people from Egypt, because I'm focused on Egypt, on Egyptian Raqs Sharqi. So bring people from Egypt or local musicians that are already living in the country from Egypt, because I know as an organizer, well, there's a lot of money involved. Let's say it's a lot of insecurities to organize an event, right? So that's the first thing, give the voices and also bring the people of the culture to be the audience or to learn and participate. That's a huge challenge that I don't see at belly dance festivals across Europe, because it's challenging. But I think that's what we can do. Yeah.
Excellent.
Lenka, tell us a little bit about your Raqs Sharqi Museum. When did you start it? What was the inspiration for it? And how did you got there?
Yeah, it's actually a nice story, I think. So, I at one point I was teaching a lot of dance classes per week, and I was tired a lot every evening. And I noticed that what made me feel good was to look at golden era movie clips. And I fell in love with that. And at one point, which was 5-6 years ago, I was wondering, okay, my ex-husband asked me what I want for Christmas. Okay. And I was thinking, something with Samia Gamal. And I started to search that on eBay or wherever, that I would have a DVD with one of her movies. And then I found a lobby card from 1954, from actual 1954 lobby card, which is a card that they were placed at theaters, at cinemas, showing little scenes from movies that you would go to see. And it was from Ali Baba and 40 Thieves, Samia Gamal with this parrot. And I really, really wanted it. So I sent that link to my ex-husband, and he bought it for me. And I remember unwrapping this Christmas present and holding it in my own hands. That moment changed everything, because I felt like I am connected to that era. It's from actual 1954 with Samia Gamal. Oh my. So from that, the passion started. I couldn't stop searching for items. Okay. And I also have to say they're extremely expensive. And at that moment, I had to save for my wedding, which didn't happen. I mean, we got married, right? But my ex-husband still doesn't know how much money I did not save for the wedding, because I invested to the museum. And then I just wanted to have more items. And then I realized, come on, this is so beautiful. I have to do something with the collection. I cannot just have it in my hands and be like, hee, this is mine. No, I realized, okay, let's make Raqs Sharqi Museum and let's put it online so everybody can see it.
Can you explain to our listeners and viewers what is the golden era period that
yes.
you are mentioning?
Wait, but I wanted to add, I know that's a great question, but 1 second, because I wanted to add something very special about actually physically holding something from history in your hands. It's different now that we live in a very digital age. We see so much online and it passes in and out of our brains and our eyes and our ears. But when you have something physical in your hand that is from that period, that is a completely different psychological journey. Mm-hmm. And it then translates into the body, and then there's something very special. So when we look at old photos of family, or we research our ancestors and we look at this photo, we feel, oh my God, this is real.
A connection.
It's a major connection. So I think that part of the research journey that we're about to hear more about is that physical experience, of doing that. So it's a friendly reminder to those out there who love art and creation to actually invest in something physical, not just a digital item, or to go see it or to go to museums. So I think that's just special that you said that. So wonderful. Yes. Let me go back to the...
And I want everybody to experience this. Seriously, it's such a wonderful feeling to have the item in the hands, or at least witness it in its physical form. So although I started to put it online and people can access these items, not all of them. I have more than 400 items at this moment, including vinyl records with the voices of Tahiyya Karaoke Naima Akef from the 1950s, even by Badiyah Masabni from 1935, billboard with Samia Gamal, signature of Samia Gamal 3 times already, and more and more and more. It's beautiful to find it on the website, but see it in person is different. And just to answer your question, Valerick, what is golden era? Do we have enough time?
Yes, of course. I'm sorry to have interrupted, but let's segue into golden era because it is something that is part of your studies and also part of the Raqs Sharqi Museum.
Yes. So I will try to be very short in this. Golden era is time period of the evolution of Raqs Sharqi or belly dance in Egypt. So currently what we are dancing across the world is belly dance, or let's say Raqs Sharqi form. And it did have to start at one point, and it did start around 1890s, 1880s. It's a, of course, transition period from social dances that were performed by troops Awalim, Ghavazi, and so on. When the dance form was put on stages of entertainment places, that's where we see the beginning of Raqs Sharqi. Because it's a different style. We have to compare if you have Awalim or Ghavazi groups of performing women. Let's make it easy. They usually perform at social events, right? So weddings, celebrations, and so on. But if you put dance on a stage and at an entertainment hall, you have to pay a ticket to see it. You don't need to have birthday. You don't need to have a specific celebration. You just go to a club and watch it. So that's when Raqs Sharqi was formed as a new dance style, because it had to absorb new elements. There was a completely new environment. So whenever we see a change of environment, there's a new branch or new dance style coming. By the way, I'm going back to golden era in a little bit, but I just don't want to forget. I see a new dance style coming now with the belly dance festivals, right? Because it's a new environment. We don't have in the audience common public anymore. It's usually dancers in the audience of belly dance festivals. So we also see that the dance is changing. We are not entertainers in the way to make people just have fun. We can go deeper into emotions, which in Cairo we can also see that many times Egyptian dancers can go more deeper into the emotions, but the festival environment is different, and we can see the changes in the Raqs Sharqi. Back to golden era. So that's when Raqs Sharqi was formed. However, what we call golden era of Raqs Sharqi, of belly dance, it's time around 1930s till 1960s, with the peak of 1940s, 1950s, because at that time period, Raqs Sharqi or belly dance was really featured in Egyptian movies. And that's what we have as a footage. We current belly dancers, that's where we can look and study this dance style, which unfortunately is one of the biases, because we tend to think that the Raqs Sharqi looked like we see it in the movies. It probably did a lot, but we don't see the set of a dancer when she goes on the stage and performs the whole set. We don't have that in the movies. We always see a little bit or one performance. We don't see the whole cabaret show she was part of. So what I want to say is that golden era is the time we call around this 1940s plus minus there and there in Egypt. Yeah.
So you said that there's been a change in the audiences and spaces that have basically created the foundation of belly dance like we know it nowadays.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yes. So change of environment. It's the stage. It's the fact that people go and pay for your performance. So you have an audience that is not celebrating a specific thing, right? It's just it's a show every night. So of course the dance had to change, and there were so many things that changed our Raqs Sharqi. We would need a lot of time to discuss all of these changes, but just the fact that the entertainer had to react to the audience in a different way that the Awalim would react at the wedding, right? There is the bride, that's the main figure, while in the entertainment hall, it's the audience that is supposed to buy more alcohol and things in the entertainment hall, because we are still in the business. So the dancers had to entertain them and make them to buy more drinks. We call this practice fat. And that changed the form, because suddenly the dancer, we have to go back, if you imagine Awalim dancers performing at the wedding, the setting was completely different than when you're alone on a stage and you need to entertain somebody here on the right. So you have to move across the stage, right, to entertain over there. And they order some drinks, and the other table wants to order drinks as well. So you have to go across the stage. So suddenly the dance had to change. There was a huge influence by European cabarets, but I want to be very, very clear. There is a myth in our belly dance community that Egyptians just got inspired and took everything to entertain Europeans or to
that the audience were the Europeans.
Yes, but most of the time, actually, they were Egyptians. Like if you see advertisements for Casino Opera, which was a famous entertainment hall in 1940s, owned by Badia Masabni, it was in Arabic. It was in Arabic. Sometimes there was a word like in French or English, but most of the time the audience was Egyptian. So what I want to say is they were inspired, but absorbed elements that fit their own culture, because we have this misconception that Egyptian dancers try to do everything to please Western audience. That's not true. That's not true. It's constant conversation, inspiration from there and there, but definitely I wouldn't say it that way. Because sometimes we can hear this, and it drives me crazy to hear that, for example, the bedla costume that was made in Europe, and then Egyptian dancers just took it because they wanted to please the eye. But there's so much behind it, the costuming, that we would need a 1-hour lecture about it.
And so that's why when we study art in the either dance or painting or photography or film, we always, as the student, have to remember, okay, the context, what is the year, what is going on globally, what is going on internationally, and then use that information to help us put ourselves in that space, and then say, okay, what was going on in this time period of Raqs Sharqi. And I was also going to mention that in the late 1800s, in the turn of the century, was during the industrial time period, where the whole world was booming. Everybody was connecting with each other, and there was a lot of Orientalists and fantasy and romanticism happening all around the world. So a lot of things got lost in translation, most likely. And it's worth it to research the turn of the century before we get to golden era.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have amazing researcher, Nisa. I have to mention her because her work is really absolutely fantastic. So if anybody wants to learn more about this time period, Nisa's work, Heather Ward, wrote already 2 books, and I highly recommend them, because what I'm saying here, this is not based on research that it would be just me purely doing. No. I'm reading articles. I am learning a lot, not only from Nisa and other dancers, other studies that have been made. So I am just one piece of a bigger community of researchers.
And you understand that as well, because you are a researcher in your day job. Tell us a little bit more about how your day job influences your creative work and your Raqs Sharqi Museum and your research there.
Oh, wow. Okay. So as a physicist, I am all about numbers and measuring. So, for example, I did this huge analysis of Tahiyya Carioca dance and Samia Gamal in a way that I really measured with stopwatch for each of the dance clips for how long they're doing one specific movement. So I had categories: ondulations, shimmies, hip accents, shoulder accents, la-di-da, turns, blah, blah, blah. And for each clip, I measured for how long they did this movement. And I made percentage because each clip is different length, la-di-da. And I wanted to see what kind of movements they used. And I checked it across the whole career of their dances. So you can see the evolution with Samia Gamal, for example, from 1940s till 1964. And you can find out that she, for example, in the beginning, she didn't use any shimmies. Samia Gamal was in the beginning shimmyless. Well, Tahia, of course, she used shimmies, but you can see evolution of each dancer, and then you can combine and see different dancers, the research done for each of the dancers, and see what were the trends in the whole Raqs Sharqi. So this is my nerdy brain. What I do is to measure, to have data. But also as a scientist, I know the biases. For example, if we can use this example with looking at all the dance clips and measuring, did I have all the clips? I don't know, right? I used what was available. I think I gathered as much as I could, but I know how many movies, for example, Tahia Carioca did, and I know that I'm missing some. So of course it's not complete representable. I think it's a representable. You know what I mean?
Representative, yeah.
Yeah.
Sample.
We got you.
Well, 179 clips. It's pretty good sample. But of course, there are some biases, right? Yeah, so that's another thing. As a researcher, I'm aware of the bias behind. For example, if I can say more concrete examples, I'm gathering a lot of postcards in the Raqs Sharqi Museum from the turn of the century, right? And these postcards are beautiful, and we would say, oh, these were produced in Egypt and so on. But then you realize, yeah, but these postcards were produced for Europeans to send it to their families in Europe. So how much what is depicted on these postcards is actually true, authentic, indeed. What we see in Egypt is that the authenticity was pretty high, better than in Algeria.
In Algeria, yeah.
Yes.
I know about those pictures in the dancers with the cigarette when they were not necessarily smoking cigarettes at the time to fit the Orientalist aesthetics.
And especially undressing them, which it... Many times we can see these pictures from Algeria where the dancers were portrayed topless, and that's not what you would normally see, right, in Algeria. But they were probably pushed. We have to,
Which takes us back to the beginning of the conversation, like this sexualization of these brown bodies. Still impacts the way that people perceive belly dancers nowadays, even we're not dancers out the culture. Because that stigma is so ingrained in the same history of the dance and the process of colonization that we have a lot to deconstruct in there. And one of the best ways is to actually show the history with items, with graphics, with percentages. I love that you mentioned this study about the movements, because I'm sure that also gives you a lot of information about the trends, right? And I have always been very fascinated about, I feel like belly dance kind of like it's born in that intersection between the East and the West, and like how it has that constant conversation about the prejudices, right, between both cultures, right, between how the West see the East and how the East see the West. And I imagine also, like, in the evolution of the movements of these dancers, also you have the cinema. Like, it went from the social context, right, where people are performing in the same level, right? If I'm in a wedding, I'm not in a stage necessary, right? Then I put it on the stage, but then I'm performing for the camera. And that's a new also medium.
Absolutely.
And it's gonna definitely change the way a dancer moves.
Yes, I absolutely agree. This is a very good observation indeed. So the only problem with that is that unfortunately the footage we have is only from the movies. I would love if
we don't have anything from, we don't have enough.
2 clips. I think I have like short from actual entertainment places in 1940s, and they're so short that it's hard to make any assumptions. So it's very hard to compare. But yes, absolutely. Just thinking about it, the movie, the directors had a lot to say how the dance scene will evolve, where are the cameras. And also we must not forget that back then we didn't have digital cameras like here. And it has to be done by the first shot or second shot. The materials, the analog was expensive. So many times also we see some mistakes, by the way, in the golden era clips. Like for me, you would see it too. You, as a dancer, sometimes something gets stuck, and you can see it in the movie because they probably couldn't afford to do a second shot of it, of the dance scene. So it's really interesting. So definitely the movie influences a lot how the dancer was moving. The director influenced a lot. Like if I can say another story, because we are with belly dance stories, and I think storytelling is so powerful also with these items, to say the story of the item itself and the people depicted there. For example, Samia Gamal, was it 1947? I think she was performing in one movie, and the director asked her to remove shoes. Normally, Raqs Sharqi was born on shoes, right? Or in shoes. Even the Awalim and Ravazi dancers at the turn of century, they all had shoes. It's logical because you need to protect your foot, right?
If you're performing in the streets or whatever.
Exactly. So, and also, as you said, there was Industrial Revolution, so shoes were affordable also for lower classes performers. So, yeah. But the director asked Samia Gamal to remove her shoes, and so she did and performed. And once the movie was released, she got such a, how to say it in English, backlash.
Yeah. Okay.
Backlash. Because everywhere in the gossip magazines, like Al Kawakeb, classically, was written that she cannot afford to buy shoes.
There was a statement of class.
Yes, that she cannot afford it, that she is broke and I don't know what. And poor Samia Gamal, in many interviews, she's getting back to that. Even after 10 years, she's like, no, I did have money. I really did. It was just the director who asked me to remove it. And she says something funny. She said, back then I had so much money, I could buy all the shoes in Batya stores. I don't know if you know Batya, but Batya was a very famous brand of shoes made in Czech Republic. That's why, and I'm from Czech Republic. So, that's what I was. Batya. But from that time, many dancers actually did remove their shoes because Samia Gamal was dancing barefoot.
It became a trend.
It became a trend, yes. And interestingly, Naima Akef, she also didn't use high heels anymore. Tahia Carioca, as I analyzed their costuming as well, Tahia Carioca always had shoes. I didn't find any clip where she would dance barefoot. Always shoes, even when she was doing some folk or character dances. Always. But it also comes from this, probably, that's my hypothesis, it's not a fact, that Badiyah Masabni asked all her dancers to always have high heel shoes, when they performed.
That's fascinating. And I know you are full of those hypotheses and those those questions in your head, which is very important for a researcher to have. I want to get a little bit away for a moment from the Raqs Sharqi Museum and talk about your artistic process, how you choreograph, how you perform, and could you tell us a little bit more about that part of your belly dance world and your performances?
Yes, I really like storytelling, and I think all of us, the whole society is based on storytelling, right? That's how we evolved, by telling each other stories and getting inspired, getting comfort. Like even if we look at religion, it's based on stories, right? So storytelling is really powerful. And in my case, is that it works for me. I always, as a child, liked stories, created stories, always. And now I found a way how to do the storytelling within the dance. So, for example, Golden Era, trying to recreate Golden Era on stage gives me the possibility to put some stories that it starts with some acting, and then it progresses into this dance. Just because Golden Era, as we know it, we usually watch movies, so I'm trying to put it back on stage through storytelling. And I think people can relate and can have fun. I really like acts in a sense, like when you have burlesque, but I really mean burlesque when there is this storytelling and fun with what you're doing. This is such a beautiful and powerful thing to do on stage as well. When you create some setup, you create something fun that brings this flip, and suddenly you're a dancer and you continue dancing. So yes, that's what I like to do. And how I create, it's really hard to answer because my brain does it for me. I just sometimes stare in front of me and it just pops in my mind, and then everything just comes in my mind.
And then, like, I've seen you and you see also video art, and because you're recreating a lot of the scenes of the movies, right? And like putting it in the context of a show where people are just doing performances that are not necessarily related to each other, and you're gonna be doing like a reference, which I think it's great because it spikes the curiosity of people, and like you're putting it, and at the same time you're making people research about the movie and the place.
Do you mean that she has that in the background video?
Yeah, she recreates some scenes from a movie. Sometimes I have seen her using like a video art in the back of the performance, right? Like integrating multimedia as a way for you to kind of like for people to understand that is a scene.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Like, what are some of the challenges that you have? Because you cannot present that type of work everywhere, right?
Like at festivals and
like how do you manage yourself in that way? How do you make those artistic choices?
It's so difficult. I'm trying always to be independent. So I sometimes take my own projector with me. For example, to make sure that it will work.
That makes sense.
I'm trying to be independent on props. So for example, lately I have this act where I need ironing board and iron, but I know that every organizer probably has an ironing board and iron that I can use in my dance. But I really have to think what I can use as props, or if I can bring them by myself. So this is very challenging. What is also challenging is to make sure the audience understands what I'm doing, and not every time they do, but I'm trying to make it in a way that the next time I do it more understandable. And also as an artist, you know it probably yourselves, not everybody will understand what you're doing. So also to accept that not always
But it's a big risk also what you're doing also, because like if I'm gonna take a scene from a movie that it's already in a context, right? Like how I can make people understand that this is the scene, because I don't have the setup of the movie. Like I could use certain elements and props, definitely, but it's going to be a little bit more abstract.
Yes. So what I'm doing is also voice cover. So yes, that I do a lot of, if I can take an example so we can be more concrete, I recreated, it's 10-minute long performance about Naima Akef's life. And I'm portraying there Naima as a dancer, as a comedian, as a singer. I don't sing, okay? I don't sing. I use her voice in the back. But I also talk in that performance about her grandma, who was a Delta performer, and she performs with furniture in her teeth, balancing the furniture in her teeth. I do that act as well. I'm talking there about the fact that Naima Akef died when she was only 36 years old, when she had a 2-year-old son. It's a really, really heavy performance. But how to put it all together is to just simply have a voice storytelling in the back. So it starts with a music, and then there's a voice saying, Naima Akef was known artist, la-di-da, but she was a comedian. And then there's a comedic sketch that I do. Then there is another storytelling. She was not only a comedian, but she was also a fantastic tap dancer. I'm not a tap dancer. So how am I supposed to tap dance as Naima Akef if I'm not tap dancer? I turn it into comedy, because that's what Naima Akef would do, right? She would be, I think, she would try to make fun of herself, or fun of the fact that she doesn't do something, but she would do it in a brilliant way. So I tried to do the same in that scene, that I basically start to tap dance, and suddenly the voice says, I said she was a master of tap dance. And I'm like, oh, come on. And I cover my feet with the veil and I start to tap dance. So my feet are not visible. So it looks like I'm a very good tap dancer. So, it's really a lot of storytelling behind. And why not to use the voice? Why not to use somebody telling actually what's going on? So when there's this scene when I put on a dress and the voice says she everything about her hobbies that Naima Akef collected Chinese like cups and
like tea sets or
yes, something like that.
China?
Ceramics.
Okay, China sets.
Yes, she likes to collect these and everything about her hobbies. But at the same time, suddenly he says the voice that Naima Akef was actually sick, and at that moment I'm acting there that I have my child, like Naima Akef's child, and we are cuddling. And then the voice says she was sick. And I just hold the hand of the child and I just look straight. And all the voice says that Naima Akef was searching for help in Egypt. By the way, she was supposed to go to Europe to get cured, but Egypt didn't allow it. She didn't get permission to get out or something like that. And then she died, and it's a very heavy moment for the audience and also for me. I usually start to cry. So because at that moment when I was performing it, I was 36 and my daughter was 2 years old, so it was so personal. And then it finishes with her voice and singing and try to turn it into something positive. So yes, it's very risky to perform it because you don't know how the people will get it, but to use all the possible ways of storytelling, from props, voice, video if possible.
Gosh, but there's so many opportunities in taking risks. There's so many chances to learn what you can do better next. So absolutely taking the risks at the venues that you choose and your audiences that you don't always choose, right? I think is worth it, because then you can say, okay, you know what, this performance, I could do better. I could do it in maybe at this venue or at this festival or maybe I create my own event so that I can share the story that is very important, for people to know. That's fantastic. I think that we should have you in the next Belly Dance Stories theater show. We do similar things, not as length, not as a multimedia yet. But we love performances like that, and it is uncharted territory for this art form to do acts and performances like this. But it has an intention, it has a message, and it has the opportunity to evolve and to expand.
Yes, and I would really like to encourage everyone to, if you want, of course, to put some storytelling in your own dance. It doesn't have to be completely with acting and voice covers. It's just one tool how to do storytelling. You can, just the fact that you choose a song that already has lyrics, it already does have a message. It's just how the way you transform it. And it doesn't have to start with right away dancing to the song. Take your time as a dancer. Like when I think of some performance, we are also listeners. We sometimes run to the stage and immediately dance, but I want to hear first. Why not to stop on the stage and hear and get into the melody and then start to progress with my own storytelling, even just pure dance form. But the connection between the music, the message, and you has to appear. Otherwise, the storytelling is just... it's a difference if somebody reads a text, just reads letters, or if you write it down and you really feel it. So I think we can do the storytelling without all these props and multimedia. It's just one tool. There are more tools to explore.
100%. I'm so happy that you shared that more simple process, because yes, there are so many ways that we have as humans always told stories. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I want to go back to screen dance.
Okay.
Because I know you won an award. right? In
Yes.
that film festival.
I did.
And then if you're going to do voiceover, right? And then you're going to use multimedia, you also have to learn about these things. And I know that that film that you did for the Raqs Film Festival, I heard that you did everything.
By myself.
That you recorded yourself, that you did. Did it have voiceover? I don't remember.
In
right
that
now.
clip, there was no voiceover, but I take care of the sound,
The editing.
everything.
The editing.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, how technology also, because, you know, what I'm fascinated about screen dance and belly dance specific is that we did have a foundation in the cinema and in the movies.
Yeah.
So we have certain advantages over other dances that I feel always in belly dance we're always like behind. You know, we came to the theater later than the rest of the other dances. And then, but to cinema, we came first.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And then I have always been like, well, we do have all these dancers in movies, right?
True.
And we do have a lot of room to learn from it. But how difficult it is for you to be the director, right? Now what we're thinking, you're the director, you're filming, and at the same time you're executing.
I love it. It is tiring, but I
It's
love
tiring,
it.
I
Yes.
imagine, right?
But I love it. I used to take photos. I love photography. I stopped because of I need to breathe as well. But I loved photography, and I used to play flute as a musician. So I know a lot of when I edit sound, I think I understand the background on when to cut and how to edit music. And I love videography, and I'm just pure amateur in this, but it's just the passion of creating the storytelling. So for me, it is tiring as for other human beings, but it goes, I would say, a bit more naturally because I am already interested in it and I already have an idea how to do it. And it was a really good point what you said, that indeed we have the advantage of already having movies with Raqs Sharqi dancers, right? So it would be nice to work with that media more. Why not? Why not?
But I think that you were naturally good at it precisely because of the type of research you have done.
Yes. Yeah, it could be.
So, like the fact that you really know how, I'm going to choose this and I'm going to position myself here because you already had a research
Yes.
and movement for the camera.
Yes, absolutely. And it's something also very important for people who are interested in Golden Era or just Raqs Sharqi. Watch movies on and on and on, because it gets to the brain and you understand, you have it in your mind how the scenes look like, how the camera actually did not move, because back then they had cameras on some movement because they were completely different
Heavy.
technology, and heavy. So this is already an advantage. You just need a tripod and a camera when you're recreating Golden Era. You don't need somebody moving the camera. There are some movies where it does move, to be honest. But yeah, it's watching movies, and it gets in your mind because it's like food. What we eat, that's how our bodies look like, how we feel also mentally. It's also how we feel mentally. It's what we watch, what we read. It's what we put in our minds. So if I watch a lot of Golden Era movies, it will automatically pop up when it's needed. For example, at the Weekend House where my parents live, there's this super charming windmill, like cute, small. And I was just hiking and I just saw it. And this is exactly the example. Immediately, Naima Akef popped up in my mind when she was recreating dance from Netherlands, when she's dancing in wooden shoes, klompen we call it. And I immediately saw it. I'm like, oh my God, I have to do something. And I arrived to the Weekend House, and my parents, I don't know for what reason, they do have these wooden shoes. And suddenly the storytelling started to come up. I put them on, I'm like, oh my God, I will recreate what she was dancing in the scene. And I started to do it. And Then I realized that the wooden shoes were just souvenirs. So it's impossible to really walk in them. And I'm like, okay, well, then I will use it. I will try to do this scene, and then I will always fail dancing in those shoes. And what if in that scene I just take them and throw them away, and I'm like angry, and I start to dream. And I start to dream about Naima Akef, how she danced in her famous scene. And I'm like, oh my God, then I will recreate it. And it's already there. But I need the vocabulary, I need the resources already in the mind by watching and really do that job.
That's amazing. I feel like you are so curious about the world, but you're also, you act on your curiosity. And I think that is a very special part of being a creative and being an artist, is acting on your curiosity. Just go with it, have fun with it, be in the state of awe, be in a state of surprise all the time, but also be in a state of receiving information, because that's part of your quote pre-production work of anything that you do, whether video, film, performance in person, classes that you teach. So I love that about you.
Thank
you. That is amazing.
Thanks. I just want to also add, there was a lot of failure as well. I don't want it to sound that I'm just, I don't know, like...
no, but that's exactly how we grow, through those failures.
Yes.
100%. Yeah. 100%. You have to keep trying and failing and trying and failing. And that's part of your science, part of you, and also your artist, because they go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And that's the base of science. It's actually, you think you reach something, and then there's another group who tells you, no, actually it's all wrong and you have to start again, which is not every time pleasant, but we have to accept that failure is part of the process. It's the kick in the process to move on and try to do it better, or try to reconnect with yourself. Because sometimes, I maybe go a little bit apart, but sometimes in the belly dance community, especially when I see what's happening in Asian countries, I see that many dancers are detached from themselves in the dance. I see execution of beautiful movement. I will never be able to do that movement, really. I don't have the technique. I think my body is just unable anymore. But I sometimes don't see the dancer herself. And I think that facing, failure is a very heavy word, but facing feedback sometimes can be harsh, but it can also reconnect you with yourself. So I would not fear.
I think that's a great observation. Like receiving feedback, like it's hard. But we just have to open ourselves about it, and like don't think about it as a failure. I think that's what you meant super well.
Change the dialogue and say it's an opportunity.
It's food.
Okay, it's food. It's a tension that we need. We need that tension in order to grow and to learn. Take it and then release it. Do something else once you have learned from it. Okay, you can release whatever that was and then go try something else. We have to continue to talk about how that feedback or those quote failures or those mishaps are actually the fertilizer to your soil.
Big time.
Yes. And it also, if we go back to giving lectures and talking about historical context, many times we hear dancers saying some kind of myths, repeating myths, belly dance myths, right? But if somebody approaches you and says, hey, it's actually a little bit different. It's so important to step back and be humble and say, okay, I did not know. I'm sorry. Let me check. And it's good to admit that we said something in the past which was not correct. It happened to me. I did many lectures already 15 years ago, and now I see how wrong I was. So it takes a lot of courage to admit that you are wrong. But I think that's what can make you and the community to grow, to admit, okay, I was wrong. Now I have new resources. Look, it seems it's this way and this way and this way. For my current knowledge, it might change in future. So it's really not to take everything too personal, I would say. It's also another thing I learned by doing scientific outreach. So what I do, not only in the science that I do, the actual science, I have a project where I talk about space weather to blind children. Actually, I have a project to engage blind people. And there I realized how much it is all about the message. It's not about me necessary, it's about the message that I want to transfer. And that's what I take also when I perform, when I go on the stage. I don't take it like, now I'm on the stage. No, I take it, I have a message and I want to give it to you, the message. So then it's easier to not to be too nervous and not to take it too personally, because it's what you try to just transfer. Yeah.
That's a good tip for those who do get nervous before they go on stage. Always think about, what is your message? What is your mission to go on there?
Mm-hmm.
Always remember.
Yeah.
Let's move towards let's go back to the Raqs Sharqi Museum. Yeah, let's talk about how do you want to, what is the future vision of the Raqs Sharqi Museum?
Yes.
And also, you know what? Before we go to the future vision, the museum used to be called the Belly Dance Museum.
Yes.
Why did you change it to the Raqs Sharqi Museum?
Yes, thank you. So indeed, it was called Belly Dance Museum because that's, especially in US, right? It's belly dance. It's a very known term, no?
It's the commonly known.
Yeah. In Europe, it's usually Oriental dance, how it's called, Orientalse dance or Orientalni tanec in many different languages. But then, you know, one of the items that I have is a program of Samia Gamal dancing in White Cargo Show here in US. It's a program of the show. And in there is an interview with her where she's asking the interviewer not to call her belly dancer. She hated the word belly dance. And then when I was realizing, okay, I call it Belly Dance Museum, and then one of the main items says, don't call me a belly dancer. I was like, oh my, I cannot. And then when you go more into the research, and especially again, research by Nisa showed that the dance form, when it appeared on the stages, started to be, in those advertisements, was called Sharqi, Raqs Sharqi. There was Raqs, there was a dance, Lebanese dance, there was Turkish dance, there was European dance, and then there was Raqs Sharqi. So it was back then in the golden era, actually pre-golden era time, let's say 1920s, it was already called Raqs Sharqi. So I decided just to call it Raqs Sharqi the way it is. It used to be called back then, and yeah, that's why I changed it. So even though I have items depicting dancers before Raqs Sharqi was born, it is still part of the history. So that's it. And the vision is, so currently it has just its online form. I have all the collections with me. And what happened 2 years ago, I bought a house with my ex-husband. So I think the story is already told by saying this. And I bought it with this beautiful attic. I had all the plans to make it real, that people can come and visit and see the items. So I had all the concept like that normally it will be hidden, the items, but then I just pull it off and it's ready, the exhibition. But we divorced with my ex-husband, so the house is also sold, and I don't have the space anymore. So there are two visions. I would like to really have a place where people can come and watch or see the items and really experience them. So not only to see the items, but also hear them, all the vinyl records that I have collected, to really hear the voice of Naima Akef from the vinyl record from 1950s. I have stereo views. Stereo views is something from 1890s. It's like this wide, and there are pictures that look exactly the same, but if you put it in the stereoscope, is it stereoscope written, named, you put it there and you look through and you see it in 3D. I want the people to actually see it from 1895, to really see the 3D imagery through their own eyes. So I really wanted to have it, sensory.
Multi-sensory, yeah.
But I don't have the place anymore. And then what happened? Lina Keushi, which is a Egyptian photographer, contacted me because she did beautiful exhibition of her photos depicting important Egyptian women, and she contacted me that she was chosen to have this exhibition at a famous French photography exposition, and she wanted some of my items to be there depicting Samia Gamal. So we cooperated, and she did it. I saw it. It was beautifully done. And she actually told me, you know what, with this collection, go to exhibits, go out to museums, try to connect with them. And she's so right, because there's one thing, I can have it with me personally. What use is of that? Nothing. People can come to see it. Who will these people be? Usually belly dancers. But all of these stories can be transmitted further. So to cooperate with museums, exhibitions, to put the items out. But the ultimate goal, which I was talking to Mohamed Kazafi about it, and he was just smiling. He said, "I wish you good luck." Was to have the museum in Cairo. Because where else the items should be? They should not be somewhere in the attic of one girl somewhere in Belgium. That's ridiculous. And I know it myself. And that's why I wanted to get the life ideally in Cairo. But there are so many challenges that it will take me time to cross them. But if there are people who want to help me, please join me. And that would be lovely if I can just step back and let it live its own life, because these stories should be told. Yeah.
Beautiful dream. It will happen.
Okay.
It will happen.
Yeah, it's a massive dream. It's not a little dream, so it just takes time. And I also love the idea that we're talking a lot here about reaching outside the belly dance community, as a way to really create an impact.
Yes.
Because if we really want to change the way this dance is perceived, we need to think in a bigger audience that is not necessarily, like we mentioned before, dancing for dancers. We have to reach out the people of the culture. We have to reach out also Western audiences outside our little bubble of the belly dance world. Lenka, how can dancers and members of the community contribute to the work of the museum? And are there opportunities for collaboration or sharing historic material?
Wow. I would say it this way. I'm very much open for any collaboration. If anybody has just a slight idea where to bring the items, anything would be very helpful, because I have to stay still a bit real. I'm still just one human being with full-time job, a little daughter, dance career, and it's heavy. Sometimes it's really heavy on me. So if there are any ideas, I'm usually very open to collaborate. So how people can contribute to Raqs Sharqi Museum, just to help me a little bit with the management. If I can call for help, that would be lovely. So that would be one thing. Help me translating some materials would be also very helpful. But also people can do their own research, and I'm really happy to provide some items, to not necessary to send them out. I would not do that, because I'm very careful, because they're usually in very not okay state anymore. But I can at least provide scans and so on. There's so much research to be done. And if anybody feels like they want to contribute, they want to start research, they just don't know how, contact me. I can find a job for you, a research field, where we can do something together, because that's another thing in science. You never work alone. You need people around. So I'm very happy to provide some
Do you know any other collectors that are doing similar work as yours? Yeah, similar collections?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm definitely not the first one. Priscilla Adum, for example, she has a massive collection, and she did amazing work by providing translations of these items. So it's Priscilla. Then we have for sure Sahra Saida. Nisa also has her own beautiful collection. So there are more collectors across the world. I think the collection that I have is probably the most broad collection because it spans from 1737, that's the oldest item I have, until 1970s, 80s. And it's very broad in the sense that it's not only magazines and postcards, it's also, as I said, billboard, vinyl records. I have contracts between artists, like Nagwa Fouad. I have a contract between her and her hairdresser that she will do specific hair, whatever, for a specific movie. So even identity card. Oh my God, I have an identity card of Raqs Youssef. I feel a bit strange about this because, Raqs Youssef doesn't live anymore, but my dealer in Cairo, I call him dear, but it's Kamush. Kamush, if you hear it, thank you so much. He always finds items for me, and then you receive this identity card of a famous golden era dancer, and then you ask yourself, what happened that I have identity card of a dancer? Like, what is the story behind it? Was it all illegal? What happened that I didn't see the procedure? Because that's something that real museums are struggling with. They have beautiful items, but many times they were stolen, and then how to trace it back, how to deal with it. And suddenly I found myself that I have to answer these questions too, and I don't know the answers. So yeah, that's another thing. Then not always when you buy the items you don't know what happened, how the item got to you. That's why I would be very happy if the items are also back in Cairo where they are supposed to be. But it's so that's very, very, very interesting thing to have such items. It's nice, but at the same time, yeah. See, I'm in this uncomfortable place.
Suspicious,
because,
yeah.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
because and I don't know how to even act because I'm just one individual. I'm not a museum who is established like other big museums. So there's another questions that I have to deal with, and I'm learning myself. Yeah.
Yeah, you're currently in this process of learning how to be a vehicle of translating, this information and preserving the culture as well in this humble, small, humble way, big and small, depending on your perspective, right? Mm-hmm. So it's ambitious, but it's very important. And you, along with all of the other researchers around the world who are writing about Raqs Sharqi and the history and continuing the research, because this is the stories of this art form are very how can I say, it's just not clear, right? But it gets clearer as the years pass, right? And more research comes through. But it's dedication, it's personal dedication. We have to understand that a lot of us are not funded to do this type of research. The funds come from our own, work and from our own money. And this is very important cultural research that has to be done. Yes. So thank you, and thank all of the other researchers that you are all working on doing this.
Thank you.
This work. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's one thing I wanted to say. There was one surprising thing that came up while I did the collection and everything, and reading on research of others. I realized something that I heard the whole life, that history just repeats itself. And now I have the proof. Back then when Raqs Sharqi was formed, let's say it this way, 1930s, we have Raqs Sharqi dancers performing in the entertainment halls. The Awalim dancers, that were the traditional performers still performing at weddings, they didn't like the Raqs Sharqi dancers, because for them they were just in the club, mingling with the audience, because they were, by the way, pushed by the owner that they have to mingle with them and be engaged, because that's how they kept on buying drinks. So Awalim really, really didn't like it. And the gossip about these Raqs Sharqi dancers, oh my God. They are wearing vulgar costumes. They are doing ugly moves. It's not art anymore. Take these sentences and you will find out that many current dancers are talking exactly the same way about the dancers who are doing makaragan in Cairo or whatever popular is, or how the dance is changing. And it's like, oh my, it's just repeating itself. Old generation hates the new, or is like, giving hard time to the new generation, or when there's a new dance style coming up, the old or the original, let's say, generation doesn't like it. And I was the example of it. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to say, I really don't like competition Raqs Sharqi. For me, the way Raqs Sharqi evolved into competition style, which is visible at competitions, I don't like it. For me, it's a complete disconnection from the culture, from the movement. I'm going to calm myself down. But I'm the exact example, right? I'm the old school dancer who doesn't like the new things. But yeah, and then you see it from the 1940s in this interview, how they're even, who was it? Samia Gamal. She didn't like the new generation, but she was very polite to say it. So in one interview, they asked her, what do you think about the new generation of dancers? And she said it very politely. She said, well, I don't want to offend anyone. I will say it this way, Farida Fahmi dances beautifully. And she didn't want to comment on Suher Zaki or Nagwa Fuat. Can you imagine? And then you read the interview of Suher Zaki, how she doesn't like the current generation. It's constantly on and on and on. I love it. It's just, we are humans like we were before.
Mm-hmm. It keeps going.
Yeah.
When do we learn?
Will we? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but actually, this is the. I think that's one of the reasons of the Raqs Sharqi Museum, to bring it back and show it into our own faces, like what I witnessed with my own soul. That's part of the culture, or not culture. That's part of the evolution. Some things are repeating itself, and we can be more aware if we do this research.
100%. Spot on. Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes.
I always felt that not only in dancers in the culture, but also in foreigners, there's this nostalgia for the golden era.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is the golden era. We never had another golden era after, What do you think it happened? Do you think the dance has really changed a lot? Like, when I think that people talk about golden era, I feel this nostalgia for an art form that is presented in an elegant way, in a way that sometimes people frame it like it does a favor to female empower. Like, women are not necessarily super sexualized in these movies, even though that could be questionable too. And right now in the scene of Cairo that I go frequently, right? There's this nostalgia for that type of performance, that it's very elegant, that the dancer is not necessarily trying to go pum pum wow, that you could also feel that they're really enjoying the moment. Like, there's this beautiful femininity and grace, right? Do you feel the dance has changed a lot now when you go and see dancers, let's say now in the Arab world, or do you still feel that there's a big connection?
Oh, I have like 3 different layers that I want to talk about when you say this. Where to start? So the fact that there is this hunger for nostalgia, let's say, I think it's an answer. So every time there is a massive change, there is always
reaction.
Reaction. And what I see in general in dance community, there was a huge influence by these huge competitions. Like in US, you had this what was it, Belly Dancer of the Universe or something. So in Europe, there were all these huge competitions, and suddenly this competitive boom, boom, bam, bam, let's say, dance style was formed. And I think a natural answer is the hunger for the elegance. So that might be one layer. On the other hand, this is what I'm talking about, festival environment. If we talk about the Cairo scene, I think that at one point every dancer wants to connect with herself again, and I think the femininity and the fluidity, it will come up again. And that's what actually Esmeralda, because you had Esmeralda on your podcast, right? That's what she was saying. The language, the way you move, it should be understandable for the person. And when it's only bam, 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 and changing the position and stuff, and you cannot breathe, also for the audience, it's hard to understand. So to stop and be in the present moment is something that actually will survive, I would say. If you want to be, again, invited, and I don't want to say be loved, but if you want the audience to be engaged with your dance, they need to understand you. So I think that the language of the dance will always come back to its origins. That's what I feel. There's another layer, because you ask if there was no more golden era. Yes, that's true. The dance evolves differently. There are new branches, new environments, new branches. But there is one thing: we people tend to romanticize the past. So we think about golden era as elegant and romantic, but it's just the way we think. Yes, yeah. And there's one more thing. Golden era looks like it was all pink and beautiful, but it was harsh time for the dancers as well. Because again, what we tend to see is the movies and usually the top artists like Samia, Tahiya, Naima, and so on and so on. But there were many, many, many other dancers who worked in worse clubs, in lower classes, and that was their job. These are also professional Raqs Sharqi dancers, but their stories are not told because they did not appear in the movies. And even if we look at the lives of the top artists, they were also not always positive and easy. Example, Naima Akef, she was with Hussein Fauzi, the director. He was her husband. Once they divorced, you cannot find her in movies anymore as the main actress. She was always the side role, because probably, my hypothesis, he had connections with other directors, and it just pushed her down. So even we tend to romanticize the past and forget that it still evolves and it's still beautiful the way it evolves, and we should appreciate the evolution of our dance style. But yeah.
In short, can you help some of our listeners who might not understand yet or might not know of the culture back then? And was it political? Was it social? Was it religious that these dancers were treated in a certain way?
The thing is, there's so much to say.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, it's a complex actually to answer. I'll try to do it. So unfortunately, not only in Egypt, but we can see it also in other countries, whatever is done by a woman is less. Even now in Europe, I'm still in the privilege of a European woman. Even I'm still feeling that I'm lower than a man, even though I do space weather physics, right? Still I have to fight for my opinion to be taken seriously. And now we are talking about Egypt, 1950s, 1940s, or the times before. So, so that's one aspect, unfortunately, across the globe, but also in Egypt specifically because of the social context, I would say. Yeah, women were pushed way more down. If you would check the research by Katrien van Nieuwkerk, she was talking to local people to ask them how they would categorize different professions, to put them from the top to the lowest. And female entertainers were basically at the bottom, while male entertainers were also not top, but they were still higher, right? So it was there always, unfortunately. And there was one more layer I wanted to add, and it's And second thing, we must not forget about the classes in Egypt. So there is a difference if you dance for the high classes or the low classes. Many times we see high class dancers talking nastily about the low class dancers, but they've never been in their situation when they basically are trying what we all do, like survive and provide food for their children and stuff. Unfortunately, there is this thing. So the low class dancers or middle class dancers were mostly pushed down even lower. And the aspect we also like to forget as foreigners, that we foreigners have it easier in Egypt many times. So Egyptian dancers have it way more difficult because they have to answer their family who really doesn't want them to usually perform, while foreigners have it much more easy. Even if you look into golden era, the owners of the clubs, entertainment halls, if they were foreigners, for them there were different rules than for the owners who were truly Egyptian. They were much harder laws. So the foreigners, they were not under Egyptian law, they were under, because there was British governance, so they were answering some different laws. So yeah, for Egyptian dancers, you're a woman, you are Egyptian, and you are already, unfortunately it didn't change, and even back then it was, I can imagine, worse than now. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you for clearing that. For some listeners might not be aware of that.
Yeah, and that's there are people who could talk about it much better than me, like Shahrazad or Zara. What is happening? How sometimes the foreigner business or dancers are basically ruining the environment for local dancers in Cairo. So we should not only try to understand it, but accept the responsibility and what we can do about it to make it better for the Egyptian dancers.
Be an ally.
Yes.
Be somebody that could actually give some type of support of them instead of invading their spaces.
There is one idea that I wanted to say is many times we have workshops and festivals, but many times they're only in English and there is no translation into Arabic, for example. So for the local dancers to come and also participate. So that's what, for example, my dear friend Shayla, she is having this Raqs conference every year. It's online conference where we discuss all of these topics connected to culture. And she's trying to find a way how to have simultaneously everything translated into Arabic so people can join. So it's not just us Western dancers talking about
Arab dancing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's great.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we who else should do better than us? We have the resources. We should just need to do the hard work.
Yeah, we have the privilege, and that's one of the things that I think is fascinating by your work is about, passing the mic to these voices of the past, and at the same time having that historical introspection, but collectively, as a way for us to position ourselves in history now and understand, okay, we're foreigners. That means that we have certain type of privileges over dancers of the culture. There's been a process of colonization too that impacts the way we see each other, and the way people also are gonna see us too. Definitely we have more advantages, let's say, to move in certain spaces and make the decision to be a dancer than a native dancer, definitely.
Yeah.
But there's also fabulous work done by dancers of the culture too, like the Golden Era. I feel like Amy Sultan in Egypt, she has done also something with that revival of the Golden Era. and there's fascinating Egyptian dancers right now in the scene.
Yes, and there are so many beautiful books that were written around 1950s, 1960s about the dance itself, but they are not known to us. So I collected some of them, and one day I will translate them, right? So there's a lot to do. There's one more thing I want to say. It's, again, I feel that our dance style that we do, the Raqs Sharqi, sometimes it feels that the community is, how to say it politely? Sometimes we maybe tend to put our ego first. But I think it's really time to, I don't say push it down, but sometimes just let it sleep and listen what the others are saying. As an example, again, mistake from which I learned with the Raqs Sharqi Museum, I just provided translations of the text. Why didn't I provide the original Arabic text, right? So Kamush, he said, "Hey Lenka, nice job, but what about the people who can actually read the Arabic text?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but there is the picture." And it's like, "Yeah, but on the picture it's not that easily written." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you're right. Damn, let's do it better and let's provide Arabic and then the translation." So it's really important to listen to each other, and especially people who have something to say. Yeah, to put the ego aside and accept that, okay, that was not good what I did, let's do it better.
Well, I think we are at our end of our podcast. This was a fantastic conversation, Lenka. Thank you so much. It was actually a little happy surprise because I will just say it, we did not expect to interview you.
Me neither. I didn't know.
But it turned out so wonderful, and it's worth it to have you in person and have you because we went to a lecture on Friday and you taught it, and it was you brought some of your memorabilia and the items that you have from your Raqs Sharqi Museum, and it was wonderful to hear your lecture and to see the items and the chart that you have, the timeline that you provided for us, and all of the other information. I think that if anybody wants to learn from Lenka, and if you get that chance, just do it, take it, because you are walking information. You're a walking book, and it's so beautiful, and you have this very creative and childlike spark within you that is how do I say that? It's that it transfers over. What's that word? That it's
magnetic.
You can dance it.
it's that I can feel it too. Goodness, I'm at loss for words now, but that you can feel it too, basically. So on behalf of Belly Dance Stories, thank you so much. We're going to put all of your links in the notes, in the show notes, and anything else that you would like to provide us with, we'll put it in the links, and to contact you as well, and your contact information. So Val, do you want to say anything else?
No, I'm so grateful. I know Lenka for a while, so it's finally we're meeting in person, and it was great. The conference on Friday was amazing. Okay. Anyone that had the opportunity to go and see it, definitely take advantage. It's very clear. I think you do a great summarize, and definitely we can feel your passion, and it's very contagious.
That's the word. Oh, yes.
Contagious. Well, it's not that poetic, but it's okay. It's contagious. It's contagious. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. So we could do this podcast, and also I want to tell you that you are doing a great job, because you find a way how to also give voices to other belly dance stories, right? So the work that you are doing is really, really important. And future Raqs Sharqi Museum managers or whoever it will be will have your podcast in their archives, because that's what is important also for us to think in the present moment, what we are leaving for the future. And for example, the podcast that you are doing is the mark that will stay and then will influence the future generation. So thanks to you for doing what you do.
Don't make me cry. Thank you.
Yay.
Aw. Okay, everybody. We will see you again soon. Thank you for listening. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this podcast episode with Belly Dance Stories. We want to thank our sponsors, HGAP Studios, The Peacemaker Studio, Maison de Mosaics, Orlando Belly Dance Convention, and our beautiful community sponsor, Kathy Lamise Martin.
And make sure you visit our website, bellydancestories.com, to see all the information about our workshops, future activities. You can connect online with us in the social media, also at bellydance_stories in Instagram. And you can go and visit our YouTube channel under Belly Dance Stories too.
Real stories.
Powerful performances.
Every curve tells a tale.